time right now. Ubisoft's slump continues. Star Wars Outlaws fails to turn things around. X-Defiant numbers are sliding, and we still don't know where the sands of time is.
What's X-Defiant?
X-Defiant is a tactical turn-based, what do you call it? It's like Fire Emblem. Or
Okay.
it's like kind of like that, but it's like based around like aliens and shit. At least that's what I think it is. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But basically, like this was actually really interesting. How like all of these major outlooks. I got a bunch of articles up here. I have it from PC Gamer. I have an article here about it from FPS Preview. I've never heard of them before, honestly, though. I have an article here from Tech for Gamers. You know, and they're all like immediately saying, "Yeah, Star Wars is shitting the bed." Like they're not trying to defend it. Usually, these outlets would be trying to defend it, but they're not. Like right out of the gate, they're not defending it. They're saying, "Yeah, these sales 50% lower than Star Wars Jedi Survivor in the UK. Sales forecast looks grim. Stock is actually going down and saw no discernible change as a result of the Star Wars Outlaws release." Like, again, every single data point, it seems to happen on a more than weekly basis now. Every single data point is indicating that the Western development really needs to get its shit together now, or they're fucked. Like, there's not a single data point that goes the other direction at this point. Not one. So let's see, 5.5 million copies sold is so far, which they should have more than 10. This is a major IP, and honestly, I actually think that the Acolyte has a lot to do with this. I think that the massive failure of the Acolyte and the Acolyte getting canceled contributes to the poor performance of this game. I think that they were actually relying on the success of Acolyte to kind of boost the sales of this game, and the opposite has happened. So they've only sold 5.5 million. By way of comparison, Cyberpunk had sold 25 million copies as of October 2023. Now again, that game's been out for a couple years now. Helldivers 2 surpassed 12 million copies, sold in just 3 months. Black Myth Wukong has passed, well, this says 10 million. It's actually 18 million in 2 weeks.
Wild.
Investors seem very disappointed about Star Wars Outlaws sales numbers and let Ubisoft stock crash. Shares lost over 10% combined in the last 2 days, so the company just slipped to under 2 billion in market cap in Paris. That is a dismally low cash on hand value for a company that has as many offices and employees as Ubisoft. That's a dire number. It's almost a 10-year low. And this is like a major IP release by a major AAA game development company. And also developed by Massive, who the last game that they made was the Avatar, the Ubisoft Avatar game, which actually I played it. I platinumed that game. I actually thought that game was actually not too bad at all. And
really?
And I played that game on release. That game is fucking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And
run like shit?
It did not run like shit. It ran well. And it didn't have bugs and weird game-breaking glitches or anything like that. It ran great. And the next game they release is this thing. Star Wars Outlaws. It's baffling. The 180. You know? Griffin Gaming suggested that Outlaws actually was some other shelved Ubisoft project that got dusted off and had the Star Wars skin slapped on. They were considering delisting Ubisoft from the EU stock market. Jesus. They're based in the EU. Oh my god. Yeah, see this? And here's the thing. Fucking AC Shadows is likely shaping up for the same outcome. And you have to remember,
absolutely.
You have to remember that.
What, 2 months?
You have to remember that Ubisoft just came out of like one of its worst years ever. Now, granted, like last last year it actually made a huge profit, but it wasn't because of like new game releases. It's because of two things: Rainbow Six Siege, which is still performing well, which is like back catalog success, and massive downsizing of the company. They did a ton of restructuring and cut like tons of overhead costs. We're talking like 9 figures in overhead costs globally, and that's what gave them a profit. Basically, was back catalog and massive downsizing and restructuring. And they basically said that like to reach back into like a really healthy, cash on hand, like cash flow, is they relying on Outlaws and AC Shadows. And Outlaws is performing half as well. They've already dropped its projections. And AC Shadows is not shaping up to do any better. So like the two big things that they were like counting on to bring them into positive cash flow are basically failing. Now don't get me wrong, Outlaws is going to make money, but nowhere near the money that they need it to. Nowhere close to what they needed to. 55% lower than Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is an actual good Star Wars game. An actual good Star Wars game that actually does a pretty, like the romance between the Night Witch and Cal is actually endearing. I actually think that it's pretty well done. It's kind of cringe, but by Star Wars standards, it's actually pretty good. I like the characters in the Jedi Survivor series.
Yeah,
I do. I really do. I actually look forward to the third and final game in that trilogy. Their forecast looks grim. Analysts include Ubisoft was supposed to be a big success. However, the company's latest sales forecast predict a much tougher outcome. Ubisoft originally targeted 718 million in bookings for the second quarter, but the estimate has now been lowered to 553 million. That is like a 30% drop. That is a huge adjustment downward. Analysts at Financial Times
still not accurate.
conclude, probably not, that Ubisoft desperately needs Star Wars Outlaws to hit big. Yeah, like I said, it's their tentpole. But the game's non-existent hype paints a concerned picture for the French company. Of course, they use this fucking... This, I'm telling you, this is running on a PC with low specs. It's gotta be. Analysts have lowered their expectations for Star Wars Outlaws, now forecasting sales of just 5 million copies this quarter, down from the earlier estimated 8 million. They were expecting 8, and they cut that almost in half. This gloomy forecast is troubling for Ubisoft, has already been struggling with failing revenues and profits. Last year, the company saw a sharp 18.1% drop in total revenues and reported net losses of $546 million compared to the $113 million profit the year before. Again, due to the restructuring and backlog success. This situation about Ubisoft's business strategy is concerning, particularly its focus on popular but crowded open world and live service game models. Well, not just that fact, but Ubisoft used to be the king of open world. Now they're playing catch up. Ubisoft hopes that its upcoming game, AC Shadows, will compensate for any sales shortfall. No, it's not. I guarantee you that it's not. There are already concerns about this new title, especially the controversy surrounding the samurai protagonist Yasuke. Notice how there's no moralizing in here?
Yeah. Yup.
Like these outlets that typically would go to bat, and shill for these companies and like deride gamers for shitting on Yasuke, they're not saying shit. They're not sticking up for them. They're just saying it's like, yeah, there was this controversy about Yasuke that's casting that into doubt. I honestly feel like the bottom line dollar is finally starting to like really seriously affect the industry. Like they're really starting to feel it, and they can't get by on moralizing anymore. They're being forced to recognize the business reality, and they're shutting their fucking mouths. That's what's happening. Assassin's Creed Shadows would need to sell at least 13.5 million copies to make up for the losses. I thought Valhalla sold like more than 20 million copies. It says only 13 here. I thought it sold like 20. I could have sworn it sold more than that. With Ubisoft's annual revenue target of 2.5 billion now at risk, the company could face more setbacks if its new releases don't meet expectations. You have to remember that Skull and Bones also didn't perform. So
Yeah. Wait, scroll down. What's to say there about quadruple A titles?
if future games don't improve the situation, Ubisoft might need to reconsider its strategy for developing its quadruple A titles. That's a jab. That's an underhanded jab. Yeah.
Yep.
So even the people that would normally take like shill for these gaming companies are starting to tell the gaming companies like, yeah, you need to get your shit together and you need to do it now. Like I said, like this year is the year of the reckoning. It really is.